So now we go back to the idea of cults. So the question I have is, guys, who here is a cult? You know, I look at this objectively. Again, like, this is not about right-wing being left-wing or right-wing or pro-Trump or anti-Trump. I look at this objectively. I look at this as a person who was born in the former Soviet Union, and whose parents went through this, and whose parents were essentially, you know, dissidents. They went against the government that suppressed them. And when they did that, they were called conspiracy theorists. They were called cult members when they were telling their friends or people that they knew who were not necessarily, you know, in the know, so to speak, about why they wanted to leave the Soviet Union. Their friends would tell them, "Come on, like, what are you talking about? What's wrong with you? You guys are crazy. You guys are this. You're going to go to America? Look what's in America. You know, don't you see the news? You know, they have like poor people living on the streets." You know, it's interesting, guys. They used to show, what did they used to show on Soviet television? There was a guy, he's Jewish, I forget his name now. He was a journalist, you know, a journalist for the Soviet Union. So the Soviet Union, namely the KGB, sent him to New York. And what would he do? He would walk around Manhattan. Yeah, you're talking about like late 70s, early 80s Manhattan, right? When Manhattan didn't look so great, right? And he would walk around and he would just film, right? So what were you likely to film in Manhattan in late 70s, early 80s? You know, if you guys want a great example or a good idea of what you were likely to film, go watch the movie The Warriors, right? That's what you would see. That's what you would see in Manhattan, okay? You would see something akin to the movie The Warriors, like people on the streets, like, you know, if you go to San Francisco today, you'd see the same thing. Homelessness, drugs, people getting robbed, you know, and that was the image of America that was shown to like millions of Soviet citizens. Like the streets of New York in the early 80s, like literally, right? Like, it's just like, you know, you might as well film, I don't know, one of the scenes of like the movie Trading Places or Coming to America or something like that. That's basically what it was, right? Or, you know, the life that Mike Tyson describes when he was in, you know, Brownsville. When I was in Brownsville, Brooklyn, I was like robbing people, you know. That's the life he talks about. That's what Soviet citizens thought America, all of America was. That one scene. And they would tell this to my parents. You know, my parents applied to leave in 1977. They're like, "Where are you going? You're going to this hell, this capitalist hell. Look what happens to people. Everybody fends for themselves. The government doesn't care about them. And most of them are on the streets as a result. And then you have the rich get, you know, the top, like, you know, like what Bernie says, the top 1% and everybody else on the streets. Everybody else is like, you know, poor and whatever. And why do you want to go there? You know, look, you have everything, okay, so you have whatever, like, certain things, okay, like, but like you have more or less what you need here in the Soviet Union. Why do you want to go to something even worse? You know? And my parents were like, and my dad, namely, he would tell people, listen, you know, I have, my two brothers are there. They live in New York. And what they're telling me is that, you know, part of what you see on TV is true, but then there's other things that you don't know about that they're not telling you. That are wonderful, like, and there are freedoms that they have over there. This is, again, late 70s, early 90s that they had these freedoms that we don't have here, right? My dad tells of his friend who lives in Chicago. He moved to Chicago and he says, you know, there's a lot of stuff you guys don't know. And this is what he's, you know, and we used to get like packages from my relatives and friends, you know, clothing and pictures and different things. And these are things that are like, we started to learn that they are readily available to anybody who wants to go, like a supermarket, and go get them, as opposed to my father having to get on a train or a plane to go to Moscow just to get fruit for his kid. Like, I would see bananas or oranges once a year, right? I can go to the, you know, ShopRite right here, 5 minutes away from my house, and get bananas and oranges. I couldn't do that in the Soviet Union. I had to go to Moscow. Because why? Because these fruits are out of season. The only place you could get them readily, you know, available was if you lived in places like Armenia and Georgia and Uzbekistan and you know, basically all the southern republics where these things actually grow. That's where we got those things. On top of that, we also got them from Israel. Interestingly enough, we got a lot of oranges from Israel. Yeah, guys. So and now I'm comparing everything that I see here, and I'm looking at especially what happened with the election, and especially since I was watching, I personally, I don't know about you guys, I was watching all of the coverage of all the hearings, these voter hearings in Georgia, in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, in Arizona, and even the court case, you heard me, that was heard in Nevada, by the way, where there was a DNC lawyer from a firm, I forget the name of the firm, who was defending basically the DNC against the Republican or the Trump lawyer who was bringing the case. And this lawyer is a lawyer of a firm, and and I did some research on this firm. I forget the name of the firm. It was the same firm that created, guess what? The fake, which we now know is the fake Steele dossier. So, my friends, the question is, who are the cult, and who are the people that are telling you about the cult? Now you have to ask yourself the question, who are the cult, and who are people telling you about the cult? Because these hearings were blacked out, completely blacked out by the mainstream media. So again, and now you may say, a lot of people came and say, well, these things were never heard in court, every court threw them out. My friends, we now know that, first of all, any court could be compromised. We also know that all of these courts were bought and paid for and or infiltrated by China, or other foreign actors. Even if they were Republican or Democrat, at this point there's no such thing, Democrat, Republican, it's already an irrelevant thing. There's either a person who's just paid off by foreign actors or a person who's not. So if you guys want to ask the question, there was that one judge in Nevada who heard a case, which is essentially the same cases that were thrown out in PA and in Michigan and in Georgia. And again, not seen by the media, not covered by any of the media, except for these right-wing sources, unfortunately. You got to ask yourself the question, why? Why were they not covered? With extensive evidence, with extensive testimony, with extensive affidavits signed by people. There were thousands of people who signed affidavits. There was a few people who came forward, a few by few, I say, like, maybe in the hundreds. Many people were afraid. They were afraid for their lives. All right? So now you guys have to ask yourself the question, who are the cult, right? Who is the cult? If I look at it just objectively, just logically and objectively, the cult are the people that are hiding things. The cult are the people that lack any self-awareness. I was just reading an article today, an independent Swiss. You know what? Let me bring up the article. I'll read to you guys it's so astounding and ironic. Here. Swiss machine learning. One second. Okay, so you guys probably heard the group QAnon, right? And they're the guys being blamed for all this stuff. Okay, so it's the title of the article: Swiss analysts using machine learning to crack identity of Q. Fine, it's a real story. The mysterious Q behind QAnon conspiracy movement, which is instrumental in storming of the U.S. Capitol. Like I said, a bunch of clowns just walking in, and the cop is like telling them, this is like a sacred place and stuff. My friends, I can show you the video from New Yorker magazine of all places. Okay. Swiss startup Orf Analytics said it has used its algorithm-based machine learning text analysis software developed to detect plagiarism to help crack the mystery behind QAnon. Quote, there are clearly two styles characteristics QAnon messages. Company chief Claude Alain Roten, which I like to call Rotten, with one T, told AFP, Agency Free Press, in an interview at his home in western Switzerland. Okay, I'm going to skip. He's like talking about, conspiracy theories, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so now we get into it. See, it says, but Roten, who spent 3 years in the United States, said he had grown increasingly concerned over QAnon's population manipulation there and had decided to apply the software on the movement without being paid. My friends, a person who is saying that QAnon is manipulating the population clearly doesn't understand what the media, and I'm talking about both Fox News as well is included in this, what the media have been doing for the past 30 or 40 years. And if you guys don't believe me and you think I'm crazy, just look at how the media cover the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Just look at the words that they use. Just look at the words that are used by the media when Israel goes into Gaza, when Israel does any operations with Gaza, or even operations with Syria and Lebanon. Look at the words that are used. The media use the same words, almost the same words, as the Soviet newspapers used, when Israel was fighting the Arabs in 1967 and also in 73. They essentially turn Israel into the aggressor. They turn the party that is defending itself from daily rocket attacks into the aggressor. My friends, I'm telling you, this tells you everything you need to know. This is the barometer. This is what I tell people. I tell people the same thing about Trump as it pertains to his support of Israel. They're saying, well, he supports Israel, but we live in America, and what about his policies towards this and towards that? And I say to them, listen, the ultimate litmus test for a politician, for any leader, is his treatment and or support or non-support of Israel. That is the barometer. Just like the ultimate barometer and litmus test for any media outlet is how they report about Israel. That is the ultimate, guys, for me, that's the ultimate litmus test. That's what I judge by. And if you see how they report, like CNN and the mainstream, even NBC, CBS, ABC, how they report about Israel, how they try to make moral equivalences between the IDF and like Hamas, or the IDF and Hezbollah, and they do these like body counts and like, oh, you guys killed more people and those guys didn't kill any people. It doesn't matter if they're throwing rockets every day. They don't know how many people they kill, but how many people did you kill? How you should judge a leader, essentially. And now we understand, my friends, who is the cult and who are the people trying to expose the cult. Again, as fervent as they may seem in their support for a particular leader named Trump, if you come up to many people, I'm telling you guys, I talk to people all the time who happen to support Trump, and they're not Republicans, and some of them are even registered Democrats, some of them are even Bernie supporters, and they will, a lot of them will say, I don't like the guy, but, or, here's the policy that I like, but I don't like this about the guy. But, I was talking to somebody the other day, they told me, you know what, I don't give a damn. I know he's a prick. I know he's this. I know he's that. I don't give a damn. His job is not to be nice. They told me, I'd rather have somebody tell the truth to my face and be who he is than tell me nice, sweet little lies for 4 years. Like, I'm not going to mention who did that, not for 4, he did it for 8. Actually. And he treated Israel like crap. And he treated Bibi like crap. And you guys know that, okay? Those of you guys are like up in arms about this capital thing. You guys know that there was a guy before Trump who treated Israel like crap. He asked Israel to go back to 67 lines. He asked us to like split our country in half and basically put ourselves in danger. Not only that, he got into something called the Iran deal, and he gave billions, hundreds of billions of dollars to Iran. And that's a fact. Not only that, we just found out today that he gave money to Al-Qaeda. That was one of the declassified documents, which I don't know if the media is reporting on that. I'm telling you guys right now. And I could show you an official declassified document from the United States government. My friends, now we understand what the barometer is. Now we understand who the cult is, the cultists are. It's the people who have absolutely no self-awareness whatsoever. It's the people who accuse others of what they do. That is the definition of a cult. Not only that, when you come to them and you tell them that, hey, you're brainwashed, or hey, you did that, you're accusing me of that, but you did that stuff, and they can't even fathom what you're saying. Not only that, they can't even have a debate with you. Either they run away, or they call you a name, or they try to cancel you, or they try to censor you on social media, and then they tell you, well, if you don't like it, it's a private company, go elsewhere. Okay, people go elsewhere, and that elsewhere is canceled as well. The server doesn't want to host them. Friends, that I'll tell you guys, that to me is a definition of a cult. That's a cult. That is a cult, straight up. And I'm telling you guys, not as a person. I don't know, again, conservative, Republican, blah, blah, blah. I'm telling you guys as a former Soviet citizen and whose parents were dissidents, and they are telling you that the Democrats and the leftists and Antifa and BLM and the majority of the media, even including some Fox News, are a cult. They're a cult. And the people running social media are a cult. Or they like they lack just human empathy at this point. That's it. That's it, my friends. And if you have any doubt as to what I'm saying, I'm going to put in the comment section some videos. I'll put one video. There's a movie that a lot of Americans haven't seen, and I highly recommend that a lot of you guys who are not privy to Soviet movies, right? And this was a movie that came out. It's called Heart of a Dog, Собачье сердце. It came out in 1976 during the beginning of what was called Perestroika. And once you see the clip, you'll understand why that is, because a movie like this could not have been made in the Soviet Union 10 years prior, maybe 20 years prior, because it would have been considered something that was essentially against the regime, against the government. And it's interesting. I'll post it, and you guys will watch the scene. Just give you guys some background. It's basically it's made in 76, but it's set in just shortly after the Soviet Revolution, and it's basically the people who are running the committee of a particular building, right, of a residential building, and they walk into the apartment of a prominent doctor, like who they call a luminary. He's a doctor. He's known all over Europe, and he just does all these incredible, procedures and operations and all these kind of things. And they walk into his house, and they basically, start kind of interrogating him and basically telling him that, hey, like, you got all these rooms, like, what do you need them for, right? Sound familiar? AOC and Bernie. And so I'm going to post a video so you guys can see the conversation that's being had between this guy Shvondir, who's like the leader of this committee, and his goons, and the doctor. Right? And you'll see the back and forth, and you'll basically understand what is going on in America today, and you'll understand finally maybe who the cult actually is. And the cult, I'll tell you guys, I say this with kind of it's not even hesitation. I say it kind of with a tongue in cheek. The cult is not. It actually is not people who support Trump, because people who support Trump, a cult, when they follow a person, they see no flaws in the person, and they love the person himself. It's called a cult of personality. Again, many people look at policies, they don't look at the person, as opposed to the people on the other side who look at people instead of policies. And when you point out policies to them, they cannot have a conversation. They run away, they call you names, they throw things at you, they cancel you, they shut you out, they censor you, etc., etc., etc. Not only that, if you don't agree with them hook, line, and sinker on a particular issue, or if you say, well, I agree with this part of what you're saying, but I don't agree with this part of what you're saying, right? I have a nuanced view of this issue, they also cannot handle that. My friends, that is a definition of a cult. If you who are watching, any one of you guys, you'll ask me something about a particular issue, and I tell you, well, I agree with this, an issue that, let's say, the leftists are in favor of, and certain things I'll say, well, I have no problem with that, but here's what I have a problem with, and you say that you automatically call me a name as a result, then you, my friend, I hate to tell you, you're a member of a cult. You're a member of a brainwashed cult, and you better freaking snap out of it, because I can't help you. And if you don't want to listen to me, I can't help you either.